property behind me is the newest addition to my portfolio, and I've used the BRRRR method on this one. In addition to explaining what a BRRRR is and how to use that method, I'm going to go ahead and unpack the numbers. I'm going to use this property to give you a real-life example of where to spend and save money on your rehabs. And I'm also going to tell you about some risks I'm taking, some things I don't like about this house, and why ultimately this plan still makes sense. So let's roll the glamour shots, and I'll meet you in the kitchen to talk some more.
Okay, what is the BRRRR method? The BRRRR method is when you buy a property at a discount, usually because it needs work, you rehab that property, rent it out, then refinance to get all your cash back and repeat the process. If you do this perfectly, you can own cash flowing real estate without ever leaving a penny of your own money invested in your portfolio, and that means that your return rate is infinite. The key here is to make sure that you're profiting enough each month to make it worth your while to hold on to the property. And also you want your all-in costs to be no more than 80% of the after repaired value of the home. So let's put this into perspective here. As you may have guessed, I have done a lot of work to this home. When I picked this up, I got it for $65,000 because it was an off-market deal. Had they put it on market, they probably would have gotten $85,000 for this house. So let that be a lesson to you if you own a piece of property that you're considering selling. You want to be on the open market, and you want to be listed with a realtor who has experience and knowledge of your type of property in your area. All right, so I picked it up for $65,000, and I put about $50,000 into it. So we're going to use my all-in at $115,000. Now, in my instance, I was able to do this in cash, but if you are not, do not get discouraged because you can finance your way into and then back out of these deals. So with $115,000 invested, I've just been able to target and get a tenant at $1,400 a month. Since I'm a very experienced realtor in this area, I'm going to go ahead and estimate that my appraisal will come back at no less than $165,000 for the house. That means if I was to refinance at, let's just say 75% of that value. Lenders usually will go up to 80% of your value, but some are more conservative and want to be at 75%. If I'm at 75% of the value, that means I can take out $123,750 from this property and go and use that on my next project. So out of that $123,750, I'm going to say $3,750 is used for closing costs, which means I'm actually going to profit $5,000 if that's the amount of money I decide to take out of the property. I'm then going to assume that 30-year mortgage, and including my homeowner's insurance and property taxes, I'm going to say that my financial responsibility is going to be about $950 per month. So if we take my $950 and subtract it from the $1,400 worth of rent, I'm profiting $450 per month from this home. So if this house was already in this shape and I was able to buy it for $165,000 with a 20 or 25% down payment, in order to cash flow $450 per month, that would not be an attractive deal. But because I bought this right and because I stayed in budget with my rehab, $450 a month of profit is okay with me, especially considering that involves a $5,000 payday and the rest of my funds back in my pocket. I should also mention that during the refinance process, while I still own this house in cash, I'm going to be profiting about $1,000 per month from the rent, so that's going to be nice. But the goal is to complete this BRRRR, and that is the final step of refinancing. When I get those funds, I actually already have my next property under contract, and these funds will just flow right into the rehab of that one so that I can finish that rehab, rent it, and repeat that process there as well. All right, so now that you understand the BRRRR method, let's talk about some of the best decisions I made specifically on this property so that you can maximize your return on your next deal. Okay, as an investor, it's important to stay within budget, but to make it look like you didn't. So this shower stall is an example of somewhere where you can spend a little and have a big return. So I wanted to have a detail accent tile running vertical on this wall. That didn't work out because the tile orders were messed up both times it came, so to save some time, I just went ahead with the project. But you'll notice I did not do any shelving, I didn't do any niches in here. Those things cost extra money, take extra time. They're not really 100% necessary to have the effect that this has. The biggest thing I did right in this room was taking the tile all the way to the ceiling. If you have your shower stall standard, you're going to be stopping somewhere in this range. Spend the money on the 20 additional square feet and the labor and take it to the ceiling. It's going to make the room look a lot bigger, and it's going to give you a much more upscale design than if you didn't. All right, so these barn doors were just your standard flat panel doors like you see here, What we did, we just added some trim to give them the barn door look. And although it's borderline cheesy if you look at it close, this is something that made perfect sense for the price range of this house specifically. If this was a higher end property, I would have changed the doors out completely and done something different, but return on investment is highly important. This was a good move. All right, another thing that I did right on this one, we added this half bath. Now this is not a low cost item that's going to give you big returns. You are going to get big returns if you go from one bathroom to more, and that's exactly why I did this, because it made sense. But the reason I'm showing you this bathroom right now is because of the flooring. This floor is a stick down groutable vinyl tile. This stuff I love. It cuts down material, labor, and time. Another thing you may have noticed from the tour, I painted the paneling and I painted the ceiling tile. I did these things because it would have been a negative return on my investment had I ripped them out and put in drywall.
All right, so another place where you can get a huge return on your investment is in your curb appeal. So this deck has been a real hit. The deck itself is not necessarily a low-cost item, but some of the things that I did that make a big difference are, the first thing I'm going to tell you about is these railings. This is my most favorite railing style. This is rebar that was sprayed a flat black, and that's what we used for our railings. Just use your standard pressure-treated lumber to keep costs down on the whole build of this deck. And another Big On style, zero actual functionality item is this pergola. Everyone loves a pergola. It's useless, but it looks good, and it doesn't cost a lot to put it together, so that was an absolute must for this deck. This landscaping is pretty simple. Another very low-cost item that makes a huge difference. It would have been crazy for me not to do this. All right, as an investor, sometimes it's easier to lose yourself in the rehab than it is to stay in budget. So it's very important to keep in mind where you need to neglect your spending. In this instance, we're going to take a look at this backyard. It was already fenced on 3 sides. With that being the case, it still doesn't make any sense for me to throw a gate up. It's a very easy thing to do, to gate off the driveway and have this be a fully fenced backyard. Not going to bring me any extra money. Not going to do it. Patio would have been nice. Landscaping would have been nice. Neither of those things are going to bring me any money, and that's why I didn't do them. Now, in terms of resale, a patio does have some value to an appraiser, but from what I've seen, it's about $1,000 generally, and that doesn't warrant my time or money invested to try to get maybe an extra $1,000 when it appraises. All right, another thing you might have noticed in the tour that you saw is that most of this finished basement has drop ceiling. That was already there, so of course I'm not going to rip it out. This area did not have drop ceiling, and instead of buying more drop ceiling and trying to match it, I simply had it sprayed black. Spraying these ceilings black is one of the most common things that I do when I finish basements, and that's because of the cost and the time savings. It's really good if you can play off of it into an industrial look, but overall, this is the best low-cost way to finish a ceiling in your basement. All right, so my design-oriented mind really cringes every time that I see this casing in this property, the windows and the doors each. I knew that I was going to do pretty much your straight lines with my cabinets, my doors, and any trim that I put into the property. So this curve really doesn't mesh properly with this door, in my opinion. I started to go around and look at all the casings, look at all the trim, and started to add up the numbers. It just didn't make sense. I pretty quickly realized this is something I have to let go of because this didn't change it. And real quick, back in this bathroom again, I already talked about the lack of niches, the lack of shelves in this shower stall. I'm just going to mention that one more time because, again, very important not to spend extra time and money where you really don't need to. All right, the kitchen is a super important piece of the property. I always try to keep it as functional as possible. So I definitely wanted to put the over-the-range microwave in place on this one because that's an item that people are using on a pretty regular basis. In this instance, because of the placement, if you can imagine an over-the-counter or over-the-range microwave here, that's going to take up a lot of space, it's going to be bulky, and the entrance into this kitchen is not going to be nearly as pleasant or feel as open and airy as it does right now. So when I weighed out the options, this was like $80. I probably could have gotten a used microwave. Actually, I did. I got a used microwave over the range that I could have mounted here for only $100. So in that respect, I didn't save really any money. I saved a little bit on the installation costs, but that's why I made the decision on this property to go with style over function, unfortunately, on this item. Okay, yes, you did hear me right. I said that I had bought a used over-the-range microwave. That is a bad habit of mine that dies hard, I found, and I would really highly recommend you stay away from used appliances. I bought a used stove because I can't help myself, and I bought a used dishwasher. The fridge and the hood vent are both new, and there were scratch and dent places around here. I usually go to the scratch and dent places to get my new appliances, but on this project, I didn't put enough attention to that detail. So even though I still saved probably a total of at least $700 by getting used appliances here, I'm holding this house. I am not happy with my decision. I think I'm stupid. I will probably, if this stove goes down, I'm going to replace this stove with a new stove. So that will be a bad day. Don't do that. On the contrary, if you're flipping a house, which means you're selling it when you're done, buy your used appliances. All right, so I'm taking a risk on these appliances. I'm also taking a risk on the furnace and air conditioner. Those are pretty old. I had an HVAC company come who I will use if I need to as soon as they go down. But they gave them a cleaner bill of health than I expected, so for now, I'm going to keep thousands of dollars in my pocket and ride that out. I may only hold this house for a couple of years, so if the furnace and air conditioner can make it, that's great. Whenever I go to sell it, I'll simply offer a home warranty that will cover those items to the buyer, and that again is going to be much more profitable for me than it would be to replace the units. All right, so you might wonder why I would do all this work and then only hold it for about 2 years. My biggest issue with this one is the fact that the monthly cash flow of $450 is not to the level that I would like to see it at. Reason being, if there's going to be one major repair, that can wipe out $5,400 of the profit that I would have made that year. Now yes, $5,400 is nice to have, especially considering that there's a $0 investment or a $5,000 payday that got me the $450 per month of cash flow. So if you look at it that way, it makes sense. Hold on to the property. I don't want to lose money any year on any property that I'm holding, so therefore I have a different plan. In the short term, while I do have this property, the one big
advantage is going to be depreciation that's going to help me out. So $450 a month is very likely going to be completely wiped out by the depreciation that I claim on this house. So that $450 per month is going to be pretty much tax-free, and that is not something worth ignoring. In the end, my plan is to get rid of this property, again, probably in 2 years, and it's not all about the cash flow, it's not all about the furnace and air. The property has some other problems, so let me show you what I don't like.
I love this tree. I really do. But it has compromised the garage, and it would be thousands to cut it down. It's benefiting the earth. It's a very important thing to our existence. So I am not going to be the one to embark on that project. I want my money and I want my earth. As you can see, this siding has quite a bit of damage. It is not in great shape. Painting the siding made perfect sense for the rehab of this house, but if I'm holding this for the long term, years down the road, this old aluminum siding being beat up the way that it is probably going to become a pretty big buyer objection. All right, another place I didn't spend any money is this concrete. This concrete is not in good shape. I don't like this because this is a huge expense. That is almost just as expensive as repouring this entire driveway, because you'd have to do it inside the garage. It's more restrictive, it's more labor intensive. So these things cost a lot of money, and concrete is one of those things where you virtually get no return on your investment in most situations. So I'm not going to do anything with the concrete. I don't want to hold on to it long enough to have to do something with the concrete. And even this garage door is something that I don't like. It's almond in color. It's beat up, and the garage and the siding is beat up too. So these are on my list of things that I don't like.
Last on my list of reasons that I don't want to hold this house long term is the size of this dining space. This is a pretty small dining space, and in a soft market where buyers have lots of options, I can very easily see a buyer or a tenant passing over this house because it wouldn't be unreasonable for them to expect that this area will provide them with additional opportunity to get something similar that has more space to eat. If that happens, I would likely have to discount this home to get it in line with the comps to be able to achieve my goal. So I have not committed to selling this home in 2 years, but for right now, that sounds like the most logical game plan in my mind, and here's why. I think that the market in this area is still on its way up over the next 2 years, and especially so for those entry-level type homes like this one. Currently, it's a seller's market with very low inventory, so I'm simply treating this home as a place to store my money. Now, I know I'm doing the cash out refi, so my money will come back to me, but I don't expect to be able to place that into something that I want to hold long term for some time. So initially, my cash out refi, I'll get my $120,000 back. It's going to go flow right into the next project that I have lined up. That's going to be another BRRRR. And after that is when I'm going to expect to place it into properties that I will hold for the long term. I am in this for long-term profitability. I want the monthly cash flow out of solid properties that are in areas that I expect are going to appreciate well over the long term. So the plan is, at that point, I'm probably going to splinter that $120,000 into hopefully multiple down payments on multiple properties, and regardless of how it all shakes out, it's going to depend on what's available. But in the end, $2,000 per month of monthly cash flow should easily come when I invest that $120,000 the right way. Okay, that's it. Thanks for prying into my business today. I hope that you picked something up that's going to help you either now or in your real estate endeavors in the future. And if you haven't yet, now is the time to hit that subscribe button.